about was his health and his safety, concerns that the Taliban were beginning to see him of less value to them because U.S. troops were getting out of Afghanistan. The administration says it had no choice but to do what it could to get him out of Taliban hands. Wolf?
I know you're learning more about the circumstances when he was captured back in June of 2009. What are you learning, Barbara?
Well, you know, the question has always been, did he leave the base on his own? I've talked to officials now familiar with the original fact-finding investigation. They do underscore that that found that he did leave the base of his own free will. There was no indication that Taliban got inside the wire, if you will. He walked out. But here's what's so interesting, Wolf. Troops that were interviewed for this fact-finding investigation say that there were previous instances when Bergdahl left the base, previous occasions. What does that then say about the security of the unit? If someone was able to get outside the concertina wire without being noticed, that means there was enough vulnerability that Taliban could possibly get in. That is a significant issue. They also say that one of his commanders says Bergdahl was a good soldier in the beginning. Several of them talk about him being a good soldier. The troops, however, say that they believe that he simply walked away because he was so-called bored with the unit, that he didn't feel the unit was doing a lot. So it all, again, the bottom line remains to be seen. They have to talk to Bergdahl. They have to get his side of the story, Wolf.
I didn't know that. That apparently the initial report suggested he may have left that base on earlier occasions. I assume he may have left the base, but then on his own he came back. Is that what you're hearing, Barbara?
Yeah, I mean, apparently by all accounts he went, you know, basically snuck outside the wire with no one noticing because nobody in the unit reported it. But if you can sneak outside the wire in a very small outpost with none of the other troops noticing, again, Wolf, what does that say about the vulnerability of the base? And, you know, it remains to be seen all of these accounts that seem to be swirling in public. You know, there's been a lot of reports that Bergdahl left a note saying he was leaving. Well, the officials I've talked to who've seen the fact-finding investigation say in that report there is no mention of a note. Wolf?
Barbara Starr reporting from the Pentagon with that new information. I know you're working your sources. You'll come back later. When the news of Bo Bergdahl's release was announced, the organizers of the annual Bring Bo Back event in his hometown of Haley, Idaho, declared that the event would be renamed Bo is Back. But now we're learning the celebration has been effectively canceled, with the town saying it can't handle the expected attendance. At the same time, many politicians who at first applauded the release of an American captive have now quickly changed their tune. Our senior Washington correspondent Joe Johns is up on Capitol Hill. He's been looking into this important part of the story. What are you discovering, Joe?
Well, Wolf, the full Senate is invited to meetings scheduled to begin at the bottom of the hour. This is a rare closed-door meeting on the swap that led to the release of Sergeant Bergdahl, a meeting to try to quiet the growing discontent over the swap and buffer the administration from what is effectively becoming a big political minefield. Tonight, Democrats are crying foul, saying some Republican critics of the president are now playing politics over the decision to free Sergeant Bergdahl, a decision that they once seemingly cheered.
Some of these senators are now denouncing the very same efforts that secured Sergeant Bergdahl's release. It's clear they're worried his release could be seen as a victory for President Obama. Republicans today rejected that accusation.
These are the hardest of the hardcore. They will be returning to the fight, and they will endanger the lives of Americans. So any allegation that I have changed my opinion is an absolute lie.
Then there are those Republicans who appear to have erased their support for Bergdahl's release. Republican Congressman Lee Terry of Nebraska put out this statement Saturday applauding the release of the 28-year-old soldier. His office later took it down, telling reporters the congressman learned some, quote, extremely troubling things about the case. Republican Congressman Mark Amodei of Nevada tweeted that the release of Bergdahl was the best news I've heard in a long time. That tweet was deleted 15 hours later. And in Iowa, Republican Senate candidate Joni Ernst, a veteran, tweeted thoughts and prayers to the Bergdahl family. That tweet was reportedly deleted in 25 minutes. The administration is hoping this classified briefing scheduled to begin in just a few minutes will help answer some of the questions about why the president did not inform the Congress and also cut off some of the criticism. Wolf?
All right, Joe, we'll stand by outside that briefing, speak to some of the members afterwards, get the latest. Joe Johns reporting from Capitol Hill. The heated debate on Capitol Hill obviously showing, at least at this point, no signs of stopping in the immediate days ahead. And joining us now, Senator Marco Rubio from Florida. He's a key member of the Foreign Relations as well as Intelligence Committees. Senator Rubio, the Majority Leader, Harry Reid, in the Senate, he says a lot of the Republicans, not necessarily you, but a lot of Republicans, are simply doing this criticism of the president and this swap for political reasons because they don't want the president to be seen as getting a political victory, to which you say,
I'm not sure what kind of political victory he is talking about. I think across this country, this issue has been largely criticized because it makes no sense. You have just traded an American service member in exchange for 5 extremely dangerous individuals who, in all likelihood, will rejoin the fight against the United States sooner rather than later. And he did so, by the way, in complete violation of the law, including his own members, the chairwoman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, for example, Dianne Feinstein, someone who is well respected around here for her seriousness on these issues, wasn't even consulted or notified as the law required.
But an American soldier is on his way home after spending 5 years in captivity. Aren't you happy about that?
We are, of course. I mean, no one is lamenting the fact that an American will be reunited with his family in the United States, but that's not what's being criticized. What's being criticized is the process by which it was done. And the process by which it was done has put in danger now countless American men and women in uniform across the globe. What the president has done here is sent a very clear message, an incentive, that if you can get your hands on an American serviceman or woman, you can trade them for as many as 5 terrorists.
So what would you have done if the Secretary of Defense says there's an opening, the government of Qatar now says they can bring this guy home, Sergeant Bergdahl, in exchange for these 5 Taliban detainees? What would you have done if you had been president?
I would have done everything short of endanger the national security of the United States, which is what he has done. He has returned 5 dangerous terrorists to the battlefield. This American is going to go home to his family. These 5 members of the Taliban are going to go back to the battlefield, and including a couple of them that were very serious members of the Taliban, senior members of the Taliban, commanders within the Taliban, are going to return right back to the battlefield and proceed to continue to attack and plot to kill Americans.
So you would have rejected this deal. Would you have come up with a counter proposal to try to free Sergeant Bergdahl?
Again, I would have explored any option available to us that would have been within the national security of the United States. By the way, it's not just me that would have rejected this. This deal was widely criticized when he first brought it before members of Congress in both parties, primarily for the reasons that I have outlined here. And that is that you do not free 5 dangerous criminals, murderers, members of the Taliban, and return them to the battlefield as they have done.
What about this notion that he was gravely ill?
Well, they've provided no evidence of that. Of course, we're going to have a meeting here in a few minutes where I hope they'll provide evidence of that fact. And if that's the case, then that's something that may be involved in our future calculus. But as of now, they've provided 0 evidence of that being a fact. And beyond that, I would say to you that the justification beyond some pronouncements in the media, what they've largely said is that this was an effort to further reconciliation between the Taliban and the government in Afghanistan. And again, I just don't believe that that is legitimate, and in fact that that's what this will lead to. What this will lead to is 5 terrorist members of the Taliban returning to the battlefield to kill Americans.
Do you believe these 5 Taliban detainees who were detained at Gitmo for the last 12 or 13 years actually had American blood on their hands?
Absolutely. Not only do I believe they did, I believe, unfortunately, they may again in the future. These are 5 of the most dangerous individuals we had as enemy combatants, and the fact that they're now going to be soon rejoining the fight against America, at least most of them will be, is something that we should all be very concerned about. And what we should be even more concerned about is this has sent a very powerful message to enemies of America across the globe, from Iran to North Korea to, of course, all these non-state actors in North Africa and the Middle East, that there's great value in capturing an American, because if you do, you can get some of your own prisoners released.
Do you believe you know the details of his disappearance from that base, Sergeant Bergdahl?
They have not shared that fully with us, and I have not commented on it because I think that's a matter for the criminal justice system within the military. There's a process for them to review that, and if in fact there are reasons to charge him in court-martial or what have you, I leave that up to them. I'm not here to criticize Sergeant Bergdahl. I think that we're all happy that he's back with his family. What I criticize is the process the president has followed, because it has endangered Americans now and in the future.
I heard Senator Lindsey Graham say words, and I'll paraphrase him. He says, it's going to be impossible, this is Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, for them to flow prisoners out of Gitmo now without a huge backlash. Then he goes on to say this: there will be people on our side, meaning the Republican side, calling for his impeachment if he did that. Are you with Senator Graham on that?
Well, I'm not at this point calling for impeachment. This president has 2 years left in his term. We hope they pass quickly, that we can somehow have a majority here in the Senate so we can limit the amount of damage he's doing to our economy and to our national security. I'm not sure that's the right approach, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure there's many people here that are focused on that right now.
I read the letter that you wrote Secretary Hagel, and you ask a whole bunch of questions. One of the questions you ask is the U.S. government providing Qatar any additional money, monitoring technology, or personnel support to track the released detainees? Do you have inside information you can share with us on what promises may have been provided to Qatar in exchange for their working out this deal?
Well, the notification they made to Congress is still classified, and I don't want to violate that. Suffice it to say that I am concerned about the ability or the willingness of the Qatari government to monitor these individuals, even for the limited period of time that they're obligated to do so. And that's why I continue to say that I fully anticipate that most, if not all, of these 5 men will soon return to the battlefield and plot to kill Americans and our allies in that region and potentially around the world.
As far as you know, Senator, we know that in exchange for these 5 detainees, Bergdahl is now free. But was there anything else in this deal? Did the Qataris do anything to try to sweeten the pot, specifically provide money to the Taliban or the Haqqani network?
Well, again, that's not anything we've been made aware of, and unfortunately, part of the notification that was provided to Congress is still classified at this point, but I just remain concerned about their willingness and, quite frankly, their capability of monitoring these individuals. And if you understand anything about this region of the world, once these individuals are released there, it's going to be very difficult, even if they really wanted to monitor them and their communications.
Senator Rubio, thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks. Thank you, Wolf.